Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
We're live at the Miami Book Fair, powered by Life Improvement Radio, the Total Education Network. You can go to my website, totaltutor.net, for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, LinkedIn, Neil Haley, Instagram, Total Tutor, Pinterest, Neil Haley, and Google Plus, Neil Haley, all the different places you can find me. And I'm with my co-host, Cindy Stovall, for the hour. Sydney, thanks again for stopping by Author's Corner to interview some amazing guests for this hour.
It is so my pleasure, Neil.
A lot of our glitches going. So, Sydney, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
All right, Cindy, we're ready to introduce our next guest, and I know you're excited because you're a history buff in history, and I have an undergrad in history, so I'm excited to welcome to the program Libby O'Connell. Libby is the Senior Vice President of the Corporate Outreach and Chief Historian for the History Channel. Libby, how are you, and welcome to Author's Corner live from the Miami Book Fair.
Well, thank you so much, Neil and Cindy. This is a real treat to be here. I have a brand new book, The American Plate, A Culinary History in 100 Bites, and it just came out last week, so I'm very excited.
Well, I'm very excited to have you on the show, and is this your first time at the Miami Book Fair?
It is.
Really?
It is.
And I'm sure you're blown away by the amazing authors and the amazing events there in Miami.
Oh, it's stunning, and the tents outside, there's food from all over the world. There are books from all over the world. There are authors from all over the world. It really is an amazing gathering and festival. I am a book person. My husband says that the books I buy reproduce by themselves because we always are running out of bookshelves. But I've never seen so many books and so many people who love books all in one place. It's really terrific.
Oh, it's tremendous. And Cindy, tell me specifically the amazement so far of just talking and seeing the research and listening to the show live today about the amazing authors we have.
It's incredible, really. I would say the highest caliber of authors. It's been very impressive. And as someone who was a listener to the show before I came in today, to co-host, it's been extremely impressive. And Libby, obviously you fall into that category, and I love the name of this book, The American Plate, A Culinary History in 100 Bites. So great. Tell me, what would you say in the evolution of American cuisine, because that seems to be kind of the focus, has been one of the largest transitions where a time period or an event that you would say really marked and changed American cuisine?
Well, there are two really big transition periods that I see. And one, the book begins in 1400, so before the European settlers arrive. And there is a huge transition that takes place when Columbus gets to the New World. And he comes back his second voyage, 1493, and he brings cows and horses and sheep and chickens and seeds from agriculture all over Spain and the West and Western Europe. He changes the face of the New World, both North America and South America, and he brings back food that we think of as originating in Europe. We think of tomato sauce as being Italian, but tomatoes originate in Mexico, and it was Columbus who brought that food back. It is a huge moment of seed and animal exchange, and it's going to change how the whole world eats. It has a huge impact globally. It's a fascinating time. So that's very early in my book, because it's written chronologically, and that's very early in the story of America. And then I would think later, with the beginning of industrialization, so we're when farming really becomes industrialized, and there are factories that are producing food, and this is going to happen after the Civil War, so hundreds of years after Columbus, in the late 19th century, which, say around 1870 to 1900, the whole way people are living, the way they're harvesting their food, the way they're growing their food, this is going to change. And we see it particularly after the impacts are particularly strong, even after World War II, when most people buy their bread at a grocery store. They don't buy it at a bakery, and they're not making it themselves.
Right.
It's factory produced.
Right.
So those are the really big changes. And I think right now, today, we're seeing a return to an interest in wanting to know more about your food. What's in it? Where is it from? Who made it? How can I make this at home? How can I make sure that my family, or just me personally, that we're eating the right types of food with the right nourishments that we need?
Absolutely.
Definitely, and it's so fascinating to know about this history, and to know and look at you said from industrialization from before, and how things were made more from scratch to now, and what traditionally we consider good now to what people traditionally thought hundreds of years ago, right?
Right. In the American Plate, I talk about how every food tells a story. And I tell the story of 100 different foods and drinks. And each one of those items tells part of the story of America. And it's I think, the type of storytelling that people really enjoy, because they're short bites of information, and they're about 2 or 3 pages long each, and then they're linked together through a chronological framework. But you can pick up the book wherever you want. So if you want to learn about how people ate during the American Civil War, or you want to learn about the most recent superfood fad, it's all in here in a short way. So you can love history and read it from the beginning to the end, or you can just want to pick it up and read it when you have a minute or two. But it all contributes to the story of our country.
Fascinating. Do you have a story about how a particular aspect of American cuisine directly impacted a particular chapter in American history?
Well, one of my favorite stories is about apple pie. And we say as American as apple pie, but really that's a relatively modern saying. Mm-hmm. Pie has been an important part of the American table for centuries. Even soon after people arrived here, the Spanish and the Spanish in the Southwest, and then the British up along the East Coast and the North, they loved to eat pie, and particularly it's a British tradition. And people ate pie for breakfast. They ate it at lunchtime. They ate it at dinner. They ate pie all day long. And apple pie becomes one of the more popular types because the British and the Spanish bring apples over with them. So it's not native to America, but it becomes a very popular fruit to grow in an orchard. Interesting, though, when you take apple pie apart, there isn't one ingredient that originates in what we call America today. So apples don't come from here. The first apples were grown in Turkey, thousands of years ago, and they go over to France and Britain, where they really developed into the hard cider apples, and those were what the settlers brought over. The crust, a pie crust, is usually made of wheat flour mixed with either butter or lard. That's, dairy products or hogs. Those weren't in the New World. Wheat wasn't grown here until the Europeans get here. And then, of course, you have all those wonderful spices that make apple pie taste so good. You have the cinnamon. Cinnamon's from India, from Ceylon. You have nutmeg from the Spice Islands. It's from all over the world. And so when you think about what does it mean to say that apple pie symbolizes America, well, what it really means is that we are people from all over the world who've joined together in one nation. Yes. So instead of saying America is like a melting pot, maybe we should say America is like an apple pie.
I love it. That's a great analogy.
I
think so, and it's very tasty too.
It's a tremendous analogy, and let's look at what parts of history would say. You talked about the Civil War. What about World War II? What would you say a cuisine you found out in World War II that would be interesting to talk about during World War II?
Well, one of the things I write about is meatloaf, and another thing I write about is Spam. And I think people really get a chuckle out of Spam. It stands for shoulder of pork and ham, and it followed our soldiers. It was purchased by the military, so it was one of the things that the soldiers ate during World War II, and the sailors as well, and the U.S. Navy took it everywhere. So it's not surprising, or it shouldn't be surprising, that countries where Spam is still really popular are places like Guam and American Samoa. The Philippines they still eat Spam, and of course the state Hawaii. Spam is one of their national dishes. And that all started with the availability of this canned meat during World War II. It's easy for us to look down our noses at Spam, but remember, It was clean. It had a long shelf life, so it didn't go bad. And a lot of people didn't have refrigeration during the war. So this was a food that they could trust, and it was a source of meat. I think there are people who love to develop Spam recipes and eat Spam today, but for me, I think it tells us a lot about World War II.
It was big with Monty Python as well.
Yes. Well, Monty Python's skit about Spam becomes the origin of why we call junk email Spam. So there's a direct connection through Monty Python between our use of the word spam when we're talking about our email, bad email, and the meat product in a can, because during and after World War II, the British meat supply was carefully rationed, and we exported a lot of spam, and they ate a lot of spam. That's what they had.
Fascinating.
Yeah. There's another story about World War II about the Hershey bar. I don't know if you had a chance to read that, but, the GIs took Hershey bars everywhere they went during World War II. And Milton Hershey, the Hershey Company, had actually developed a special recipe for Hershey bars for the military at the direction of the Department of War, as it was called then. They said they didn't want those chocolate bars to be too tasty because the soldiers would just eat them too fast. So make something that tasted like chocolate but still wasn't delicious chocolate. It was just sort of sturdy, wouldn't go bad, and it wouldn't melt too fast. So they stirred in oat flour, into the chocolate. And that's what they had during World War II. And that's what the GIs were handing out to little kids all over Italy and France and other countries, was Hershey's special military recipe.
Amazing.
The chocolate bars. Yeah. It's a surprise.
Well, this is definitely fascinating to talk to you about your book, and I could talk to you for hours as a historian about different things, but I know you have places to go, and as we continue to go on with our show, where's the best place, Libby, we can purchase your books and learn more about you? Where can we find you?
You should buy The American Plate at your local bookstore or online, and www.libbyo'connell.com.
And Sourcebooks is the publisher?
Sourcebooks is the publisher, yes, thank you. The American Plate.
Well, it
Thank
looks
you so
wonderful,
much for your
and I am
interest.
definitely going to buy a copy.
Excuse me.
All right, well, fantastic. Good talking to you, Libby, and we're going to take a break. You're listening to Author's Corner on the Toll Education Network, powered by Life Improvement Radio, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.